In a small, secluded village bordered by an ancient forest, tales of a malevolent spirit haunted the locals. They spoke of a figure that lurked among the trees, with a face twisted in eternal anguish and eyes that glowed like embers in the night. One evening, a group of friends decided to test their courage and venture into the forest. Armed with only flashlights and bravado, they laughed off the warnings of the villagers. As they delved deeper, the air grew thick with an unsettling silence, and the trees seemed to close in around them. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood a gnarled tree, its bark twisted into what resembled a grotesque face, mouth agape, as if screaming in despair. Uneasy, the group felt an inexplicable urge to leave, but curiosity got the better of them. They approached the tree, and as they did, the temperature dropped sharply. Just then, a rustle echoed through the woods, and one of them spotted something moving behind the tree's shadow that seemed to shift and pulse. Panic set in as they turned to flee, but the forest itself seemed to conspire against them. Roots tangled around their feet, and branches clawed at their clothes, as if the forest didn't want them to leave. As they stumbled through the underbrush, one friend fell behind. The others shouted for him, but their voices were swallowed by the darkness. The forest echoed with an unnatural laughter, a sound that chilled them to the bone. Finally, they managed to escape, but their friend was gone. Days turned into weeks, and the villagers whispered of the group's encounter. The forest was now more menacing than ever, with the twisted face of the tree forever etched in their minds. They knew that the forest had claimed one of their own, and the horrifying spirit would remain, waiting for its next victims. From that day on, no one dared to enter the forest after dark, for they knew the truth. The terrifying face of the forest was not just a tale, but a warning of the darkness that lurked within. As the weeks passed, the village became increasingly haunted by the loss of the missing friend, Mark. Whispers of his name echoed through the streets, and each night, the villagers could hear the distant sounds of the forest cracking branches, low murmurs, and an unsettling rustle that sent shivers down their spines. One stormy night, Emily, one of the friends who escaped, awoke to a knocking on her window. Heart pounding, she peered outside, only to see a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the trees. It looked eerily familiar. As the wind howled, the figure beckoned to her, and despite the warnings echoing in her mind, she felt an irresistible pull. Unable to resist, she slipped out of her house and into the rain-soaked night. The forest loomed before her, dark and foreboding, yet somehow inviting. As she stepped beneath the canopy, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread and familiarity wash over her. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Following the figure, Emily ventured deeper into the woods, where the trees closed in around her. The path twisted and turned, leading her to the clearing with a gnarled tree. The face of the tree appeared to shift, morphing into Mark's expression, contorted in pain and despair. Emily, a voice echoed, sounding like Mark, but layered with anguish. "Help me." Tears streamed down her face as she reached out, desperate to save her friend. But as her fingers brushed against the bark, a surge of energy pulsed through her, and the forest erupted in a cacophony of cries. She realized too late that the forest was alive, feeding off their fear, trapping souls within its roots. The ground trembled, and the trees began to close in. In that moment of clarity, Emily understood she had to leave before she became another lost spirit. With every ounce of strength, she tore herself away from the tree, racing back through the maze of branches that clawed at her in rage. Emerging from the forest, she collapsed at the edge, gasping for breath. The storm had passed, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. She looked back, but the forest now seemed tranquil, as if nothing had happened. Though she had escaped, Emily knew the forest's secret. The twisted face would continue to lure the curious and the brave, waiting for its next victim. She returned to the village, determined to warn others, but deep down, she feared the pull of the forest would never truly let her go.